Thank you for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. On today's review, we take a look at the Mezco 112 PX exclusive 2019 Hellboy. Today I'll be reviewing this figure in the following categories: accessories, articulation, design, is it essential to your collection, functionality, and price. Once all scores are totaled, I'll give you my opinion if this figure is a pass or a purchase. So disclaimer, there may be a dog barking in the background. There is nothing I can do about that. So very quickly before we get into this figure, this is another release from Mezco which seemingly, surprisingly, sold out very quickly. I'll go into pricing once we get to that point of it. But if you're looking for this figure now, unless you're able to find it in your local comic shop, it's not available on any major online retailers. So for accessories, you get a good spread with Hellboy. So starting to my left, you get a blade. Blade is very soft. I would have liked if the blade was in or casted in a harder material. So it's done more in a bronze color. The handle of the blade, it's more of a metallic color. Once it comes to the blade itself, it's a bit more dull. And for this blade, you receive a flame effect piece, which looks really good. Mezco does this particularly well, flame effect pieces. Here, I'm not sure exactly what you get, what this is. Well, I know where it goes. It's some fire that sits above his head. We'll definitely get more into that once we reach the functionality department. Hopefully this is coming across clear. I'm going to take a moment to clean off the camera. Okay, so continuing to slide over. So we have a pistol. I've seen some Mezco weapons done a bit better. It's more of a matte color. There is some paint on it, which I do like. Now, looking at the image on the back of the box, there appears to be some form of necklace tied around this. Unless mine is missing, I don't see that part of the accessory. And we also get this shoehorn. I think this is what this is called. So you have a few colors going on with this. Then, of course, one of my favorite accessories is an alternate head sculpt. And this is pretty different from the one that comes on the figure, as this one has horns. So I really appreciate head sculpts that are a bit different. I feel like the images are not coming in clear. Okay, I feel like this is better. Now, something that I did not know, the horns are removable. So that's definitely cool. We'll get more into that and the functionality. But the head sculpt itself looks good. There are some coloring. There's expression that's carrying throughout on the face. And the horns really look phenomenal. We get 7 pair of hands in total. We'll just take a look at one of the large hands. And it has that stone effect look to it. It's done decent enough. There's some dark paint in the grooves. Turn it on the inside. It's decent enough. You receive a base and stand, and then you receive a trench coat and a t-shirt. So I like having this. So for overall accessories, I feel that this figure comes packed. I'm going to give Hellboy a 10 out of 10. So before we dive into articulation, I made an error. So the part that I assumed wrapped around the gun is actually part of his belt or harness, whatever you want to call this. So I believe that this piece is removable. I think that it's removable. And the chain portion that I was talking about is actually right here. So diving on to articulation. So after shooting this entire video, I realized that during the articulation portion, I wasn't recording for most of that part. So I have to reshoot that part. I really don't want to take the clothes off. I'm going to leave the vest on. I am going to take off the jacket. So for articulation, let's make sure I'm recording. I am. The head barely looks up at all. I'm going to say it doesn't look up at all. It does look down. It does rotate. You get a good amount of pivot, and the head shifts back and forth. So for the arm, it extends out about that far. It is able to rotate a full 360. No upper bicep cut. You do have a point of rotation at the elbow and at the wrist. The wrists are on a ball peg, so you're able to get it in any, position that you need it to. The elbows are single jointed, bending in a decent amount. just to show you this elbow. It is also single jointed. It appears to bend in a bit more. I think it's only because this is larger. So for the torso, would have done a lot better if I take this off, but I'm not. So you have a floating A and B portion. Just using the A portion, you barely get any move forward. And I assure you that this is without this tank top being on. The same thing backwards. You do get decent rotation. The figure is able to pivot some. Using the combination of the two, it's not much better for the crunch. Barely moving back, barely moving forward. Decent amount of rotation, decent amount of pivot, and you do have rotation at the waist. It is very tight. So for the legs, they're able to extend out that far, which is very good. You can push it further, but here the fabric tightens. The leg hooks up a decent amount. It barely moves back any. You do have upper rotation. Next point of rotation is all the way at the boot. So now let's look at the foot itself. It barely goes down, barely comes up, barely pivots in or out. The knees are double jointed, bending in a good amount. And I think this is where the other part of the video picks up. Mine is seeping through. Look at that. So I'm gonna hold that, and that's where the bending starts. Nearly forgot, figure has no butterfly joint. So for overall articulation, you have some limitations with this figure, some in the arms, some in the torso, some in the legs, as well as the head. So for overall articulation, I'm going to give this figure a 6 out of 10. So with design, I want to get pretty close to this figure. I want to slide him over for a moment as I may do a side-by-side comparison. So the first thing that stands out to me with this particular figure is that the shade of red is off. This is a bit too dark, especially within the face. If it's coming across on camera, you can see that the torso is a lot lighter than the face itself. So this is too dark. Also, while it resembles the actor, it's just missing that chunkiness. And I think even with the body, now I like the muscle tone and definition. Okay, these are veins. I'm unsure. This is a vein. I'm not sure. I think this is a scar. So it does have some scarring, but this figure should have more bulk to the body. It's pretty decent, however. You can definitely see some muscle tone throughout, but Hellboy was a lot muscular in the movie. Now, aside from that, the aspects of clothing is good. Wish that this part here was more metallic, but being that it's cast in this plastic, I'm okay with that. They definitely went into detail with this. The gold is painted where it needs to be, and that's very clean. The buckles are painted. Buttons themselves are painted, and if you can look here, you can see that the bullets are painted, which I really like. The pants fit pretty well, and the boots themselves looks good. So in the movie, or images from the movie, there was a protrusion as if the meat from the forehead was wrapping around the horns. They almost capture that here. I won't be taking points off for that. And just removing these, just wanted to see what that looks like. I think the hair is decent enough as well. So for design, I think this is a cool representation of the Hellboy character itself. It's not exactly screen accurate to the 2019 version. So for overall design, I'm going to give this Hellboy. He would have been a 6 out of 10. However, looking at the coat and shirt that he comes with, I'm going to give him an extra point for that. So Hellboy will be getting a 7 out of 10 for design. So is Hellboy essential to your collection? So please correct me on this. I know Hellboy is comic based. I don't remember what comic that is. But it's not Marvel. It's not DC. So I don't know how expansive the universe is when it comes to Hellboy. We do have 3 movies. I remember him seeing Hellboy in some sort of animated form. I don't remember if that was an animated series or if that was an animated movie. When it comes to modern plastic versions of Hellboy, we do have a few, but not too many. Last year or the year before, I don't remember the name of the company. I will post it here. They created a version of Hellboy, The image of that Hellboy is there. And recently, Mezco created 2 versions. This one you see before you, which is the PX exclusive, and then the regular release version. So you do have a few options for Hellboy. So if you're deciding to pick up a Hellboy figure, rather, if you decide to collect within that Hellboy universe, he is absolutely an essential part of that. So as far as being essential to your collection, I'm going to give this version of Hellboy a 7 out of 10. The reason I'm giving him a 7 instead of something higher, Mezco did release another version of this figure, which basically dropped around the same time. You also have the company that released one. Both companies are within the same scale, so that's 3 Hellboy figures sort of back to back to back. In addition, this isn't a comic-based version, nor does it accurately match the actor from the 2009 film. So for functionality, first place that I want to start is with the head sculpt. I want to see how the horns plug in place. So they're very easy to pull out. They're not held in place by a magnet. And I may have just lost that piece. So you simply pull. I would like if they were magnetic. I feel that they come out a bit too easy. So we're going to plug this other one. And they plug in very easy as well. So we're going to prop his head off. Head comes off easy. Okay, and that goes in easy. So I want to stick to the head for a moment. And not this head sculpt. We're going to end up having to change this back. All right, so with this particular head sculpt, I don't think it's both. Yeah, it's not both. This one has like a man bun in the back. So with this one, you can actually pull this hair tab off, which shows a hole. Then you can plug this in place and it sort of sits like this. So let's again prop that head off. Let's put this one on him to get an idea of how that looks. Let's see if I can. All right, that's pretty cool. I like that. So for the stand test, you can see that he stands perfectly fine on his own. Now, I had mentioned earlier that the body is pretty stiff. Usually something that I'm not too upset about, and in this case, I'm not upset about it. I'd rather have a body that's pretty tight than one that's loose. So one of the areas of functionality that could have been improved with this figure is that the head doesn't move up. And I get it. Instead of giving the neck a separate piece, they wanted to show the muscular, so this was more so of a design choice. However, it does hamper. It does prevent you getting maximum range from the head. Also, having a butterfly joint would have been good. I feel that's always needed for gun-toting or weapon-toting characters. So for this effect, the blade plugs in. I haven't tried to do so as of yet, but it should be simple enough. Like so. I think before we put his clothes on, we should use the accessories. So he comes with a trigger hand and a weapon holding hand like that. Instead of pushing this through, I'm just going to try to bend the thumb back and get it to warp around the fingers, and that works. So we're going to take the character, prop that off, put this up. All right, so once you get that propped on, the blade has some weight to it, so my wrist is turning a little bit, not much. I mean, he holds it pretty good. So just removing this hand and putting on his trigger finger hand. Like so. So the hands are pretty soft, so I'm having some difficulty putting the hands on. So with the trigger finger hand, this should be easy enough. It goes into place, and if you just push the finger so you get him to hold the gun. And being that the hands move up and down, you can get him to point down and up. Also, this weapon here is functional. The barrel turns. I don't think it comes out. So that's pretty cool that it does turn. Let's pull this. Nah, you know what? Yeah, let's pull the hand off. Let's pull both hands off. Now I'm wondering for the coat if this entire arm piece pulls off. I don't know yet. I'm going to see. Yeah, so if you give it a good pull, it comes off. Now the part that I hate, getting clothes on these figures. I'm going to take the head off as well, as he comes with a t-shirt. Okay, I am so happy. This is a tank top, and that's gonna make, it should make a huge amount of difference. What I'm really thinking about doing is seeing if I can pull the arms off. This is very snug, as you can see. I am unsure if I can get this. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. This is pretty tight. I'm gonna try to pull his arms off. All right, so I managed to get one arm off. Maybe that's all that I need. I'm gonna work this on camera. I'll let you know if I had to take the second arm off or not. Work this off camera, excuse me. So one arm off should be enough. I got that through, and I'm just gonna pull it down. So that's good. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna add the other arm on. All right, now that I have that popped on, I'm going to leave the arms upward. You can try down, and I'm just gonna put it through the holes in the coat and just work it on. And once I can see the ball pegs, then I'll start bringing the arms down. So I'm just gonna take a moment to clean this up some. All right, so now that I have them cleaned up some, you have to be careful not to press the head too hard, as it sits low on the neck. But having him like this, and if I didn't mention already, he passes the stand test. I don't have him in a proper pose, but I'm gonna tell you, that t-shirt and coat makes such a difference. This is absolutely how I will be displaying this figure. I think he looks fantastic with these clothes on. I just really feel like that completed the look. Okay, you see a few pieces falling off. I'll fix that momentarily. And if you look in the back, you see that there's a split for the tail. The coat also has a bendy wire, not the entire coat, just this part and this part of the coat, so you're able to bend it. But just look at the design of it. It has buttons in the back. You can see that this is sewed up with a drawstring. Man, I really like that. So you can make that tighter to fit around the big arm. The patchwork is very clean. Man, Mezco really stepped up their cloth game. The collar looks good. I really like the look of this figure once he's fully dressed. So I failed to mention that I don't know where this goes. I don't know if he's supposed to hold this, if it's supposed to plug somewhere. However, his pistol does have a holster, which I should have put on before putting this on. And as you can see, it does fit in the holster. And just to show you, you can manage to get him to hold this in either hand. I have no idea what this is for, as I did not see the movie. So for functionality, we're going to hurry up and wrap this up. So the figure has some limitations within the body, each area. The head is barely able to look up any. The arms have some limited mobility, but work relatively well. And with the legs, they work fine until you get to the ankles, and that's where the problem kicks in. Now, the clothing was easy enough to get on. I don't like working with soft goods. I just rather the figure comes that way. But it wasn't a hassle to do. You do need to remove the arm, however, to get this t-shirt on, as it is well fitted. The hands themselves are a bit soft, which gave me some issues when putting them on. I love the fact that the tail has points of articulation. It sucks that this happened, so I will be taking some points off of that. I really like the fact that you're able to swap out the horns on each of the head sculpts, as I had no idea that that was a possibility. What would have been so cool, and I'm not taking points off of this, is if the head had a light up feature to really reflect the eyes. And as you can see, you can't see the eyes as the head doesn't lift up, which is a bit disappointing. So for overall functionality, I'll be giving this figure a 7 out of 10. So for pricing, this figure comes in at $80. That is before taxes, that is before shipping. I was unable to grab mine for a regular price, so I had to pay $100, 20% increase. I won't be going by that $100 price point. I will talk about it, however. So assuming that you were able to get this figure for $80 plus taxes, that brings you to about $88. You add in shipping, depending where you got the item for. Let's just round that to about $5. So you're looking at roughly $93 or so for this figure. So now is the figure worth the price of admission? So let's see what he comes with. In terms of accessories, you get a lot. You get at least 2 head portraits, which are great. You're able to swap out the horns, which makes each head sculpt looks different. You can kind of say that it could be 4 head sculpts. You get enough pair of hands to make the figure do what's necessary. He's able to use the weapons that he has with relatively well. You also get clothing, so there are alternate looks for the figure. You can sport him with just his shirt, which I just realized I didn't do, my apologies. Or you can sport him completely shirtless, or you can have the jacket on, the trench coat, or you can have no shirt and trench coat. So I like that you have a lot of different ways to display this figure. I think Hellboy is a pretty cool character. Even though if you can't milk him into his own universe, you absolutely can throw him in some other lines. Like I can see Constantine running around with Hellboy. So you can absolutely fudge this figure in other places within your display. Or put him somewhere with the Punisher from your Marvel display. Dark Horse Comics, couldn't think of it. That's where Hellboy is from. So in my opinion, out of the 2 versions, this and the PX exclusive, the PX exclusive is the way to go. So for pricing, I feel that for $80 before taxes, it's appropriate for this figure, and I'm going to give Hellboy a 10 out of 10 for pricing. That should give Hellboy an overall cliff score of 47 out of 60. So now is this figure a pass or a purchase, which brings me to the price of $100. I'm not going to tell anyone to have to pay more for a figure, as this figure was already an $80 figure before being increased. And I actually purchased this from a pretty popular online retail store, and I'm not happy anytime stores jack up their prices. So this particular company, BBTS, definitely takes a loss for that. That is scalper-ish. And I can understand that for the individual, but for a toy selling company that has the status and the size of this particular company, it's absolutely a fail for them. So my suggestions for you would be to look somewhere else. Try your local comic shops, and if you have to spend some extra dollars, that's where I would rather spend those extra dollars. So now is this figure a pass or a purchase? I'm going to say that this figure is a purchase. I really like the look of this figure, even though he's not quite movie accurate, especially with these clothes. I certainly just want to sport him with his horns on for a moment. All right, there we go. Man, I wish this head can look up on this figure. So here's Hellboy by himself. Here he is next to the Marvel Legends Superior Green Goblin. Here he is next to Marvel Legends Carnage. Yeah, I don't think this figure is going to stand. Here he is next to the Marvel Legends Venom. And lastly, here he is next to the Marvel Select Mortal Hawk. And I couldn't put this figure away as it is just too fantastic. So I want to thank you for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. I hope to see you during the next review.